Hi there, and welcome to another episode of A Little Bit of Genius, a podcast series run by North Anglia education students. If you're new to the podcast, thanks for listening. My name is Michael Crescetti, and I'm in grade 10. My hobbies include acting.
And my name is Emma Lawrence, and I'm in grade 12. After school, I really enjoy theater. For today's discussion, we are honored to be joined by Ashley De La Rosa, who is a professional actress and singer who has appeared on Broadway. She has played roles in popular Broadway shows, including Hamilton, Mean Girls, Dear Evan Hansen, and Rent. Ashley is also a North Anglia alumni, having graduated from Windermere Preparatory School in Florida. Welcome to the show, Ashley.
Hi, thank you. Thank you for having me.
Of course. To start today's conversation, what do you think your favorite role or show is that you've ever taken part of on Broadway?
My favorite show that I've been a part of is Hamilton. And I think my favorite role that I've ever done is Regina George in Mean Girls.
That's
wow.
Awesome.
That's one of my dream roles. That's actually so amazing.
Really? Yeah, it's a really, really fun role to play, especially because, you know, it's especially fun if you're not a mean girl in real life, because then you get to really dig into that.
For sure. And I know it's extremely vocally demanding. So what is your warm-up process like?
Yeah, my warm-up, it actually depends on the character and what the role requires of me. So, like, for example, I covered both Regina George and Gretchen Wieners in Mean Girls. So for the Regina, when I would go on for the Regina track, I would do not really as much of a warm-up just because the stuff that she sings sits in a spot in my voice that is a bit more comfortable. But there were just like some parts of the show that I would get nervous on, or where maybe I've cracked on in the past. So I would just like run those parts. And then with Gretchen, the score was written in kind of the break of my voice. So it was kind of hard to navigate that. So I would do like a full physical warm up, and then I would start warming up my voice. So the Gretchen warm up was much longer because also Gretchen dances too. So I was like, physical warm up, vocal warm up, and then some like meditation. So I'm just like, that one was harder for me to do.
It sounds hard.
For sure. And since the world is kind of crazy right now, we heard that you were super into social justice. So is there anything you'd like to tell us about that?
Yeah, of course. I have been working along with a couple of organizations, specifically Broadway for Racial Justice, which you can find on Instagram, and Claim Our Space Now. They are running voter pop-up registration events and census events, and they're just really out there in New York. They're based in New York, but they also do remote pop-up locations. So I did one here in Florida and registered a bunch of people to vote in Miami, and that was really cool. And then Swing From Home is an organization that connects remote volunteers to local elections. So, you know, with phone banking, like you can phone bank for someone in North Carolina, you can phone bank for a candidate, you know, in Virginia. And it's all about getting people to become involved in their local elections, because what happens is now, you know, we're all buzzed about this general election and voting at the top, but then you realize, you know, if we don't participate locally, then these people get to the top and get in these positions of power. And then it's kind of too late for us to do anything about it. So I really, really like working with that organization. And I've done a couple of things here in Florida. I started a ballot collection organization because in Florida, there are kind of really no rules, which is great for me with this organization, but not so great for the state of Florida because, you know, in the past, it's always been like, oh, Florida's got to do a recount or for the general. So yeah, so we're trying to get people to vote. I'm not like trying to change your mind or anything. It's just like, I just want to make sure that your vote is counted. So there are, with the USPS, our postal service, is just getting a little crazy. So we're trying to get, so I've started this organization where I pick up people's ballots, particularly, people who live in communities where they maybe don't have cars, or they don't live near a post office, or they have a large elderly population, so they can't really drive to go drop their ballot off. So instead of relying on mailing it in, I'll pick up their ballots. I'll drop them off. I'll give a photo receipt that it's been delivered and not tampered with. And then they know that their ballot's been turned in safely. So that was something that a couple of my friends and I started in Florida in a couple of cities here. So those are the main ones that I'm really excited about.
Great.
That's really cool.
You're listening to A Little Bit of Genius. In this episode, our students are interviewing Broadway performer Ashley De La Rosa. Their conversation was recorded in October of 2020, before the US presidential election. Subscribe to this podcast and catch every episode in the series, exploring the resilience needed to be successful in any industry.
And in the context of theater surrounding social justice, as you were just mentioning, are there any issues that you think others should be aware of or should be more prevalent in theater?
Mm-hmm.
Definitely. I think that especially this year, there has been more of a focus on inclusivity, diversity, and equity in theater and in film and TV. I particularly know more about the theater industry than I do about film and TV, just because I'm not really tapped into that yet. So I can only really speak for my industry. But I know that there have been conversations and steps that producers and casting directors have made to create an environment that is more inclusive of marginalized groups and communities, and also to take the time to do the work to actually unpack like what racial bias is and racism and what a microaggression is and how that translates into putting a casting breakdown out there. And I think that people are more and more aware of what's going on in the world and how there's, like I said, there's space for everyone and there's space for more than one type of story to be told. So the actors, I mean, we know this, but it's not always our decision. It's the producers and casting directors and choreographers that really have the power. And when they don't look like us or they don't understand our stories, sometimes that ignorance just permeates the entire industry. And I think finally now we're sort of taking the action, or they're taking the actionable steps needed to correct that behavior. And that's great. I'm really happy to be alive during this time. And I think for you both, pursuing something like this now is going to be just different. I mean, once theater comes back, it's going to be different. I don't know what it's going to look like or how or what, but it just, speaking from the inside, like there's so many things that are changing in a good way.
Oh, yeah.
Mm-hmm. And, definitely there's the whole big picture. The industry is definitely going to change because of all of these kind of social justice ideas. But you are on the inside. And, on a lighter note, do you have any, fun stories, something that you can share from onset or something?
Yeah, some bloopers. Yes. I mean, I have so many. I'll give let's see. Okay. A really big one. I really could give you like one from every show. That's how bad it is. But when I was in Beautiful, the Carole King musical on tour, I was a swing. And for people who are listening, a swing is someone in the ensemble of a show who covers multiple tracks. They cover the entire ensemble, and sometimes they cover principal members. So in Beautiful, I covered 6 dancer tracks. And one of it was really fun. I started off as a swing first, even though I'm not like the best dancer. So that was kind of surprising. But my last track that I was learning, I pretty much, knew what I was doing, and I learned the other 2. And so I'm the last one to make an entrance for Will You Still Love Me Tomorrow? And I walk to my spot, and then this like curtain is supposed to come down on stage for the doo-wop singers. That was my track that night. And I missed my mark on the stage. I got really confused because it's like, okay, this doo-wop singer is on, stage right 4, track 2. This one's on stage right 2, track 1. And this one, like, it's just all these numbers floating around. So I went to the wrong number, and the curtain closed down right in front of my face. And I'm like a cat in water. And I was just like scratching at the curtain, trying to get out. And the audience started laughing to the point where like the girl in the front, the lead singer, because she can't see us, she's the lead, we're her backup singer. She thought, she was like, because right before that, she does this reveal and her pink dress is underneath. And she thought for a second that maybe she was naked, like, that scary actor dream or something. So she's like, oh my gosh, I thought that I had ripped my underdress off. So she was singing on the mic and you just saw her she was grabbing her shoulder. She's like, will you still love me tomorrow? Just to make sure that her dress was still on. And I was like, no, girl, that was me struggling in the background. But that's definitely the biggest one ever. I've dropped some, and in Mean Girls as Regina, I dropped a couple of my props, which is always really noticeable because Regina has to be cool all the time. But one time I I tried to take my lipstick out of my jacket pocket and I just threw it into the audience. And I was like, okay, well, someone's going to go home with a lipstick.
That's so.
Right. Yeah.
Did you ever have stage fright? Maybe your first time going up or any of the other times? Yeah. Yeah.
Yes. I get stage fright all the time, actually. Even now during the pandemic, performing on Zoom, I think there are definitely more times where I feel ready and excited to do it. But I'm always nervous.
How do you kind of shake it off? You know what I mean? Is there any way to get through it?
Yeah, it usually goes away. I mean, the more prepared that I feel, the less nervous I am. But then it's also just kind of pre-show jitters. But it usually, they'll usually sort of go away as the show progresses. But I think that those feelings, those butterflies are a good sign because it just means that, you're excited to be there, that you care about it, that you're not just oh, it's another day, So I think that I'll start to worry more when those butterflies go away because then it's well, maybe I'm not excited about this anymore.
For sure. Do you have any advice for students looking to become professional singers or actors or performers?
Yeah. I would say, so when I went to Windermere Prep, I did some acting and I was part of the choir there. And it's just something I was always interested in, but I never really thought I could be a professional actress or singer. So being at a school like Windermere Prep, they really encourage their students to pursue anything and everything that they want to do, whether it's sports 100%. Or the arts, or, science. So I was really fortunate to have teachers who supported me and also just really cared about me. So I think that finding someone, maybe it doesn't have to be a teacher, but just someone in your life who really looks out for you and supports you, because it's definitely a difficult journey. And there are so many people trying to do the same thing, and which I'm sure you've both heard before. There's a lot of people out there like us who want to pursue this career, but I feel like there's space for everyone's story to be told. So, just because you look a certain way or don't look a certain way doesn't mean that there isn't a role out there for you.
Oh, that's so great. How intense is the training for a Broadway show? Is it especially tiring?
Yeah. I mean, it depends on kind of what you already kind of bring to the table and also what role you're going in for. So as a swing, I was a swing in Rent as well. And that was a lot of dancing. That was more physically demanding for sure. But also I don't have a strong dance background, so it was extra demanding on me. But something every role has its own challenges. I would say it can take anywhere up to, 48 hours to 4 weeks to learn a single track. I've learned a show in 48 hours and I've learned a show in 4 weeks. Like Regina, they took 4 weeks to teach me. And then when I did Beautiful on Broadway, it was 2 days. I mean, I had finished Mean Girls on a Sunday and I started Beautiful on a Wednesday. Wow. And we have Mondays off. So I didn't even rehearse Monday. So it was oh no, I started Beautiful on a Thursday. Yeah. So I did Tuesday, Wednesday rehearsal, and then debuted on a Broadway stage on Thursday. So yeah, it's just if you can take what they throw at you, then they're kind of will move at that pace. And I think the more that you do it, the more that your choreographers and directors, that they can trust that you can carry a show. And that's when it gets really fun because it's less of the very sort of pedantic, you go here and they handle you with kid gloves. And now it's like, okay, well, how do you feel in this moment? As long as you hit center here on this line, you can get there however you want. And like, that's more fun for the actor because we can kind of, interpret it and do what we want.
How do you deal with, because, being an actor, you get rejected a lot. How do you deal with this rejection and how have you done with that?
Rejection is such a big part of our job. And I honestly, unless it's something I'm really, really dying over and I really want, I'm just kind of okay, it's another day, another no. And I have a really great manager and a really great agent, and they're kind of close in age to me. So they'll just so my agent's really funny. He's also really, really petty sometimes, which I love. He's joking, but he's just whatever, they picked the wrong one. Those little things. It's just sweet because it's nice to have a team that's I know that they're joking, but sometimes we can misery loves company, so we can kind of revel in that a little bit, but it's all in good fun. So I'm glad I have a good team.
Mm-hmm.
That's awesome. And you said earlier you weren't necessarily a dancer, so which is your favorite? Singing, dancing, acting?
My favorite's acting for sure. Yes. Yeah. I don't know who, I think it was one of my acting teachers in college, but they said that the audience will forgive a flat note, but they'll never forgive a flat performance.
Mm-hmm.
For me, it's I would rather watch someone who is just taking me there with the acting. And if they're not the best singer, I don't care, versus someone who's riffing and running down the house, but they have dead eyes.
Yes.
Yeah. So I really enjoy that. I mean, I love singing too, but definitely acting.
And as a professional actress and singer, do you have any tips for, everyone out there on staying resilient during the pandemic?
Yeah, I mean, it's hard for me to stay resilient during this pandemic. There's definitely still there's hope is what I can say to cling on to that hope that we will be back. It's going to take a while, realistically. No one really is going to want to sit in shoulder to shoulder in a theater with thousands of people and pay even a few $100 sometimes, because Broadway's expensive. And when there's, no vaccine. So if we're being realistic, it's going to take a while, but also being realistic, it's not going to go away forever. It's a huge industry and it's something that the world needs. And I think especially after this 2020, this year, we're going to need some joy in our lives. So
sure.
Yeah, we'll be back. And I think that, not being too hard on yourselves if you don't sing every day or you don't do your exercises every week, that's fine. I mean, before this call, I was, or after this call, I'm doing a concert and I haven't sung in a long time. And so since my last event, and I was trying to sing my songs, and I texted my friend and I was like, my voice has just disappeared. I don't know what this concert's going to be, but to the point where I was like, let me swap out. So instead of World Burn, I'm going to be singing Someone Gets Hurt, because that's just a little bit more relaxed. Because I tried to sing it, just to warm up, and I was like, oh, so this is a COVID vocal moment. It's not really warmed up, but it happens to all of us. So, and that's the thing, I sing when I want to sing, and instead of forcing myself to do it. And I think that's been really helpful in the pandemic. Do it when you want to, because then you're gonna start to resent it, because we can't control when we're coming back,
For sure.
Probably our last question. What are you hoping for the future? What do you think it holds for you? What's coming next?
For me, career-wise?
Career-wise, yes, ma'am.
Yeah. I am hoping to transition into film and television. I'd love to eventually make my living in film, so I can just give this singing voice a little break and be in some movies. And I really want to eventually use that sort of platform to transition into other things globally, and more how I mean, not that she's my favorite actor or singer, but like Selena Gomez is an ambassador for UNICEF or for the UN. And she uses her platform for really good things. And I'd like to follow maybe in Zendaya's footsteps. I feel like she's super dope.
Yeah. She's great.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So
if listeners want to learn more about you online, where should they go?
Yeah, they can check me out on my website. It's www.ashleydelarosa.com. I'm also on Instagram at Ash De La Rosa. And I think I'm on Twitter too, but I deleted my Twitter app because at the top of COVID or in March when we started hearing about it, it was so overwhelming. Twitter was just so fast paced. So no Twitter.
So thank you to everyone listening. We hope you all enjoyed this episode. If you want a little bit more genius, subscribe to this podcast. Thank you so much to Ashley for joining us today.
Oh, well, it was so nice talking to you both. And hopefully, we'll get to do this again. We'll do a check-in after COVID. What's going on?
This podcast is brought to you by Nord Anglia Education students. If you want to learn more about Nord Anglia Education, you can visit us online at nordangliaeducation.com.
We'll be back again soon, so thank you again for listening and have a great day.
Thank you.
Goodbye.